Hi, this is Russ Andersson. In this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate hybrid geometric hierarchy tracking, which combines supervised trackers and geometric hierarchy tracking to handle some difficult situations, especially when the object being tracked is very thin, so there isn't enough area for the geometric hierarchy tracking, or where the images are too crazy for that to be able to handle. So it lets you work whenever you can put down some supervised trackers in the right locations, and then you can still use this technique to figure out where the overall 3D objects went and what even an entire hierarchy of objects are doing. So it does start from supervised trackers. I've done that supervised tracking already to save time. I'll point out that the little spinners here are useful to be able to see what's going on inside the trackers. They don't actually change the tracking, but they let you better see exactly what's happening. So we need to do two things, have two sets of data to do this. One is, now that we've got the 2D information for the trackers, we also need to generate the 3D information of where these trackers are on the object that we want to track. And this is basically the same process as using a reference mesh for a regular moving object track. And the other piece of information we need to set up is the lens field of view. With geometric hierarchy tracking, we do need to have that lens field of view coming in initially. So we'll set that up and go over to the perspective view here, and we're going to start bringing in our reference mesh. And initially we'll just spin it around a little bit. We're just kind of roughly lining it up with the box there. We'll need to turn on some back faces and hit slash to be able to get a solid version of it. We're also going to go and not have lit wireframes, and we'll turn on some local coordinate handles instead. Just adjust this a little more. So we're going to use the place mode in the perspective view to actually put the trackers onto our reference mesh. So I've selected a tracker. I'm going to use the right drag to zoom in. I'll hold down Control to snap onto the vertex there. And now I can right drag back out, or alternatively use the middle scroll wheel. And I'm just going to go through and do this. You can also use the middle mouse button to pan back and forth if I want. Like that. And this tracker doesn't actually come on screen till a little later. And these particular last couple of trackers are pretty much just a crapshoot. My model really needs to be a lot better. This is just a very rough illustrative thing. So this one, is sitting up here, and one of the modeling issues here is that the tracker itself is this little pin that's sticking up above the mesh, but the seed point that I've set up here is actually on the plane of the mesh. That's got kind of a little modeling discrepancy. So now I've gone and put each of the trackers onto the corresponding portion of the mesh. So now we're ready to start setting up the geometric hierarchy object to do the work. Backslash again to get back to the solid view. And I'm going to go to create mode there. Hold down shift to create something. And there, plunk down a geometric hierarchy object, roughly in the middle of that bottom part of the box. So that's, you see over here in the hierarchy, that object is the thing that's going to hold the animation for the entire box. The box geometry itself is now parented to the moving object part of it. So now we'll take the first 8 trackers that correspond to that moving part of the box, and we're going to just reparent them down to the object because they're associated with the object. So now this geometric hierarchy object knows now, because it has the object, the trackers there, that it's going to use the trackers as the basis of what it's doing rather than looking at the images themselves. So I can now go and do the same thing for the other parts of the hierarchy here. I'm just going to select my box. So now we'll do a surface creation. Gonna hold down shift. We want to have that existing object selected. So we've picked up the additional part of that. So there's one thing we need to get. We need to move the pivot point back down to right along that object, right along that hinged seam there. You can see we also picked up a few extra vertices in this process. So I got my surface lasso still selected. I'm going to select Control and just run down there, unselect those vertices, and likewise you'll see the other ones because I use the surface lasso. I'm just showing you can go and adjust this all as needed. So we've got that additional object set up, and now we'll basically repeat the process. We'll do the surface lasso again. We're just going to click there at the next point. Now we need to turn off our edit pivots mode. Plunk that there, and this time we created that first. Well, actually now let's even do that. So now we've got our additional pivot point set up, and then it's got the pan angle also. So now we have our little object hierarchy set up. We can drag the other 2 trackers into place also. And now we can go and unlock the different joints. And one key point here, the key track is associated with the image-based part of geometric hierarchy tracking. So when we're using the hybrid form, we need to keep that key turned back off so that it doesn't override anything. So as soon as we do that, everything snaps down into place. So this is actually similar to, a pin mode when you look at a single individual frame, but this actually applies to all of the frames. We can start tracking already, but let's go back and do the same thing for the additional joints. And one other thing I'm going to do is this middle guy isn't really very strong. I'm going to use the effect parent on this bottom guy so that this intermediate object is going to kind of help out a little bit to get the other guy in the right spot. This isn't, an accurate one, as I said initially. So now if I just hit play, it tracks through the entire shot. And now you have an entire animated hierarchy. And you'll notice that, it ran through that very, very quickly because it's not looking at the image at all. All the image processing part of it has already been done. It's just using the positions of the trackers to do the calculations as to how everything folds up and so on. So this gives you a very, very powerful technique for being able to generate hierarchy just as long as you have 2D tracking data, supervised tracking data of any kind. In general, you'll need to do a better job of the modeling and get the stuff so it's actually in the right locations. And then you'll be ready to generate the data, and now all these individual pieces can be exported as individual objects, as well as you can export the deforming mesh as well.